Welcome everyone to the June 22nd, 2026 Ashland Conservation Commission meeting. There is a quorum present and I am calling the meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. This is an off-cycle meeting where we handle 40B applications in a hybrid format. We are currently live at the Ashland Town Hall, second floor, Select Board Hearing Room. And we are also on the Zoom platform. This meeting is being recorded on WACA cable, and if there's any interruption in the signal, the meeting will continue. Since this is utilizing the Zoom platform, I'm required to read a pre-meeting protocol. This is the June 22nd, 2026 Conservation Commission meeting. Under Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 executive order, public boards are allowed to meet remotely. This order was most recently extended until June of 2027 by Governor Healy as part of the supplemental budget bill signed in March of 2023. And please follow the procedures for attending and participating. As I identify the item on the agenda, the applicant for that agenda item will be given an opportunity to provide a presentation and will allow to share the screen to show plans, pictures, and etc. At the end of the presentation, the chair, myself, Greg Wands, will entertain questions and comments from the commission. When the commission's discussion has concluded, the chair will open up discussion from the public. Upon the hearing or meeting conclusion, a motion to continue or close the hearing will be entertained. After any discussion, the chair will call for a roll call vote. During the meeting, commission members will keep their video on and microphone muted unless speaking. Applicants and representatives, please keep video off and microphone muted until your agenda item is discussed. Public, please keep your microphone muted until recognized. If you are calling in by phone number, you can use the *6 feature to mute and unmute. If you need to share your screen, you may request permission through the chair to do so. When the discussion is opened to the public, if you wish to ask a question or make a comment, you may request to speak by using the raise hand feature on Zoom. If you are calling in by phone number, you can use the *9 feature to raise and lower your hand. When acknowledged to speak, please state your name and address prior to speaking. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Comments must be limited to the Wetlands Protection Act, Ashland Wetlands Protection Bylaw, or Ashland Stormwater Management Bylaw. Questions and comments not related to the Commission's jurisdiction will not be accepted. During the meeting, the host, Beth Reynolds, will monitor the participants for raised hands and will be recording the names and addresses of commenters. Signing of documents will occur during the week and after the conclusion of the meeting. It is now 7:04 and I will introduce our scheduled hearing, which was continued from our last off-cycle meeting. Notice of intent, 10 to 60 Main Street, map 14, parcel 128, SLV Ashland, LLC, care of Lucas Environmental, LLC, DEP file number 95-1018. And at this point, I am going to turn the microphone over to the Vice Chair, Carl Hackinson.
Thank you, Greg. Again, this is the 40B hearing for 10 to 60 Main Street. These hearings began, I believe, on March 2nd. I'm not sure how many we've had, but it's the 5th or 6th meeting of this continued hearing. Much has happened since our last meeting here, so I'm going to make an attempt to bring everyone up to date on what has transpired. And Mr. Lucas, if I leave anything out, help me out. So since the last scheduled meeting here, we did have a site walk at the site. Our second site walk took place a week ago Saturday. At that time, we were able to access the building. We also agreed to have preliminary meetings with both of our peer reviewers for floodplain and for stormwater. We anticipated that being one meeting. It turned out that we didn't have a date that was agreeable to everyone. So a week ago, Tuesday, Becca Solomon, Gene Crouch, myself met with the applicants and representatives from GCG. That was Tuesday. On Friday, I met with the applicants and representatives from Beals and Thomas with regard to the floodplain review. That's where we are with peer reviews. We also agreed with the applicant on the scope of a peer review for the contaminant studies. All of those things are pending currently. We also are in agreement, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that initially we had talked about the sequence being contamination, stormwater, floodplain, wetlands. This evening we're going to be talking about contamination and dewatering, but we are all in agreement, I believe, that the next topic will be floodplain, and we'll reverse floodplain and stormwater. Is that how you understand it as well? Okay, I think your microphone is not on.
Yes, for the record, my name is Chris Lucas.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the topic of discussion this evening is going to be contamination, the various RAM reports that have been submitted by the applicant, the soil management plan, and the dewatering plan. Is that how you understand it as well?
Generally, yes.
Okay. And one final thing that I want to make sure that I get to corroborate with you, so to make sure we're on the same page. Received an email from Beals and Thomas that said once they have submitted all the information relevant to our review, we'll begin the peer review. So is that your understanding, that they won't begin the peer review until the relevant information that they requested on Friday is submitted?
I thought they might begin, but they weren't going to dive too heavily into it until we provided some additional information.
I think that's probably critical information. So did you have any idea when that will be submitted?
I agree, it is important information. We're hoping end of this week, possibly early next week. We just need a little time to pull a couple things together for them.
Okay. I would suggest that they hold off until they have the entire, if that's okay with you.
I think that's reasonable.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's all I have. So, Mr. Lucas, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
If you could introduce yourself and your team.
For the record, my name is Chris Lucas with Lucas Environmental. I'm a professional wetland scientist and registered professional soil scientist. With the board's permission, I'd like to share the screen here. Sharing's not turned on. I'm going to send a request.
You're looking at the wrong person.
It's all set now. Thank you.
Okay, you all set?
Yes.
Okay.
Screen. Okay. Thank you. So we're here tonight with the pretty much the same team we had at the last hearing to discuss the contaminants, as Mr. Atkinson said. Online, I believe we have John Cusick from Bowler Engineering. We have Joe Lombardo with McPhail, and we have Bob Sanda with Callahan. And tonight here in person, myself, we have George Campbell, Environmental, for the LSP of record, and we also have the applicant, Jeff Angler. I think, Carl, you summarized the first half of my, my thing here, so I'm not going to repeat any of that. I was going to discuss the site walk and the peer review. One of the things we'd like to do tonight,
If you're comfortable doing that, you can do it again. I mean, it's
I
good that
think
we're
you
on the
covered
same
it.
page. Okay.
You covered everything. I have a few things we'll elaborate on as part of tonight. But our goal tonight is to, well, I'll step back. We're in receipt of a number of questions from the Conservation Commission. We'd like to answer those tonight. So we have, like, you know, what I'll do is, if it's amenable to the board, I'll read each question so the public and everybody involved, you know, is aware of those questions, and then we'll provide a response. If you have a question, I think it would be appropriate to go back and forth as we go through it rather than moving on, so we can try to address and, you know,
Can I
sure the
just
commission's-
interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
It was a little bit of back and forth to decide how to do this. Mr. Lucas wanted all the questions submitted in advance. I wasn't amenable to that. So we submitted quite a few questions that you'll see tonight, but reserve the right to ask questions in the public forum as well.
Right. As we understand, we received an email with a list of questions from several of the members. We received a separate one with Mr. Crouch's questions, and I understand you have questions directly on the RAM report that we are not in receipt of yet.
Okay.
So, let me just skip ahead here. The top thing's blocking me. Hang on 1 second here. Oops. 1 second. Okay. There we go. That little share box was blocking everything. I couldn't get to this when I needed the control. All right, so everybody's familiar with the site. So I'll start here, and this ties into the site walk before we get into the questions. As you said, Carl, we had a site walk. I think it was a good site walk to go through the building. Mr. Angler, the applicant, has agreed to do additional soil testing as the commission requested. This plan here is showing additional borings. These little red circles, the red and white circle here, these are the additional proposed boring locations. The ones in red were the ones we showed you the locations during the site walk. There's one here. Again, this area in gray is the portion of the building proposed to be removed. This portion of building 10 will remain, and this small portion here, this building will remain. The remainder will come down. We have significant testing around the perimeter of the building. We think this is a good sampling to give the commission a good idea of what's around, within the building or underneath the building, as we'll be testing through the slab. One location is located here, another here, a fourth one here. I'm sorry, third and fourth one inside the building. These locations were determined based on access. As you know, this building is on a slab. There's no basement, but we need to be able to get the equipment in there to do the testing. So these locations were selected for that, as well as 4 locations needed for testing for the structural aspects for the new building. We also have a point located just outside the building here, just for access, but at least it gives you a sample point near there. And then we also have one outside the building here by the dock, which we looked at, and then there were 3 in the parking lot, and these are for the exterior proposed wall. So again, more sampling locations. We think this is a good sampling. Based on the site walk, we also went outside. The raceway is located here. It's this dash line through the building, which then connects to the canal. We pulled the planks here. There's some wooden planks covering the entrance to the raceway. Commission and the applicant's team looked under there. We've added that. A sample will be done there. It won't be a boring. We'll do a grab sample at that location because we don't want to punch through there. And then we'll also do a sampling at the exit to the canal. So those are the additional sampling. So all in all, we will have, we've identified 5 additional borings in the exterior of the building, 4 inside the building, and then 2 additional samples for the raceway. So we think that's a very good sampling mix that'll give the commission a very good idea what's on the site and within the building. Obviously, the peer review, I don't think we need to, I think you summarized that well. And then moving on from that, we wanted to go through the questions from the commission. And I'll just start in there unless anybody has any other questions at this time.
When you say the peer review, are you referring to the peer review of this or the peer review of the?
I was referring to the peer review working sessions we had last week with GCG and Bales and Thomas.
Okay.
Thank you. The first question the commission had was regarding stone tracking pads, and will they be sufficient to keep contaminated soil off the streets given the anticipated truck traffic for soil removal? It's a good question. Stone tracking pads are a standard best management practice for preventing sediment accumulation on the roadways. The pads are inspected daily and will be maintained as required. Street sweeping will also be used as required. So we do believe that'll be sufficient to keep contaminated soil off the streets. We will be checking it daily. They'll be cleaned as appropriate based on that and ensure sediment isn't being spread. I know a lot of O&M plans, they do more frequent, less frequent, so we think this is more than appropriate for the site.
I would just suggest to the other commissioners, don't wait to be recognized. If you want to follow up with Mr. Lucas, go ahead.
That's a good question. Bob, do you want to answer that?
Will the sweeper be kept on site?
Bob, do you plan on keeping a sweeper on site for this?
Is Bob remote, I'm assuming?
He is.
Okay.
Sorry. Bob Sander with Callahan. Yeah, the site contractor will have a sweeping attachment that will be able to go out on the street as needed, but the bulk sweeping work will be done by a subcontractor, you know, one of the typical sweepers that you see that cleans the streets.
How long would it take that sweeper to come to the site where it needed?
Again, the site contractor will be able to respond within minutes with kind of a smaller type
Yeah.
sweeper if something's needed. If not, typically the street sweeper can be there within 4 hours.
So you're talking about like a rolling brush in front of a Bobcat or something?
Correct, that's right.
So that'll
Yes.
just push it, to the gutter line as opposed to actually picking it up?
It does pick it up. There's an attachment with that sweeper, and the sediments collect inside a box, and then it gets dumped on site.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question. So when we brought this up before, it mentioned about potential having a wash station if you have conditions like we have today and they're running trucks. That track pad probably will not get all the mud off. So will you have a wash station on site available? Or you're going to have to bring one in when conditions are dictated by rain events?
I'll defer to you, Bob.
Yeah, I would say we would attempt to manage the track pad, or on certain days where we know it's gonna a lot of rain is gonna happen, maybe we don't haul that day. So we would try to limit truck traffic during those events. If a wheel wash station is needed, then we could set one up.
Okay.
Follow-up? Sorry.
Sure.
The workers that are coming to the site to work, are they going to be parking within the site or off-site? Because somebody's pickup truck or personal vehicle driving in and out of the site is going to be as big a problem as a haul truck.
Bob, I assume they'll be parking on the site?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd say during the initial phase of construction, the limited amount of construction vehicles will park on site, but as the job progresses and there's more trade partners on site, we'll look to provide some off-site parking.
Will you be removing the pavement early on? Because that would be obviously the best place to park vehicles. Because they wouldn't pick anything up.
Yeah, so during the first phase of the job, when the building demolition is happening, no, the pavement would stay in place.
Okay,
But once the buildings come down and we need to start the site work, the pavement will get removed.
okay.
Okay, thank you. Next question, will the street sweeping be tested for contamination and disposed of properly? Yes, street sweeping material will be disposed of on-site and combined with similar soil material and disposed of off-site in an approved facility. So all of that will be put into the stockpiles, tested and disposed of appropriately.
You can probably recognize your questions, so if you have any follow-up, just follow up.
Yeah, please interrupt. We want to go through these and answer all if possible, or at least as many as we can tonight. Next question is, how will the storm trap system be tested to determine if it's sealed properly from groundwater contamination? The storm trap unit will include joint sealing at all precast concrete seams, a solid concrete bottom, and the entire system will be wrapped in plastic liner. So we believe that's more than sufficient to ensure that it's sealed properly.
Do you want to just quickly, Chris, for the people that haven't been to all of these meetings, speak to what the storm trap system is?
John, do you want to give a brief overview of that?
Certainly. The storm trap system it's essentially an underground chamber that will hold collected stormwater in a watertight chamber. So then it's able to be pumped off-site at a slower rate. So it's just really a concrete underground chamber that holds stormwater and is designed to be watertight.
I just want to comment for the public that this is something, we see some variation of this technology on most of the larger sites we see.
Okay. Thank you. The next question, how will the stormwater system be monitored for groundwater contamination post-construction? The system is not tested, but the installation is critical to ensure the proper sealing, to ensure contaminants aren't leached out. This will be inspected by a professional engineer during construction to ensure it is installed to the design specifications.
But you don't know, you don't have any plans to do any testing post-construction, so you can't say if there is some kind of contamination leaking in, because we know the groundwater is high there. So
Correct.
there's no mechanism to make sure that whatever's getting into the system is not contaminated. It's just coming from surface flow.
That's correct. The system is completely separated and sealed from the groundwater. So as long as it's done properly, and that'll be inspected by a professional engineer to ensure it's done so, there's no risk to the groundwater leaching into the system. It'll only be taking rainwater from the surface, and we'll have a clean surface when the project's completed.
But how can you be sure of that if you don't know that the system is sealed properly? If you install the system and you have construction going on, that something has happened and it might have caused a joint to become separated slightly.
John, Bob, do you want to answer that during construction, how that's going to be handled?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to, again, it's a closed system that will then get pumped out. So in theory, you expect to see it working, during a rain event when there's water actually on the parking lot. If you happen to notice that the system is operating when there's no rain, we know there would be an issue, and there'd have to be something that would be fixed, but we don't anticipate that being an issue, but we would know it was.
This is a permanent feature, correct?
Yes.
It's going to survive the life of the building.
I don't know the lifespan of this particular structure,
But
but
it's
yes,
not
it's meant to
just
be
something that's
permanent.
happening during construction, it's
No, this
post-construction
is
as well.
correct.
And I guess my question is, and sorry if I'm interrupting somebody, how often will it be inspected? And you're kind of implying that it'll be inspected when it's installed. How often will it be inspected going forward?
John? What's the?
Yeah, so there's an O&M plan that's submitted. It gets inspected a couple times a year.
I have a question. You referred to the liner as plastic. Could you explain what that is? I mean, I'm thinking plastic I put over my lawn furniture. That doesn't seem like it'd be adequate.
No, it's a rubber membrane that gets put over there and sealed.
Do you know
It's
how
a
thick that is?
specific.
Yeah, I can chime in, John. Typically, it's a it's a 20 mil or a 30 mil membrane system.
And how does, I mean, I'm sure this isn't all one piece. How are the joints created?
Typically, all the seams are overlapped and taped with a joint sealant.
And that's adequate to keep it together underground forever?
Yeah, it's sealed as a chemical sealant. And again, during construction, the water table will be depressed, keeping the hole dry, so we can seal the seams properly.
Okay, that was another question I guess I had. How are you depressing the water table? Because at this location, the water table is like 2.5 feet down, at least
Sure.
from what's stipulated in the RAM report. And you're going to be going down at least 10 feet?
Yes, yep, correct.
That's a lot of
Based on the-
hydrostatic pressure.
Yes, there is. So, couple things here. So first, we are still investigating some potential alternative solutions to the one that's shown on the plan that, would still have the same volume, but may end up being a little shallower in terms of the installation. But regardless of what the system is, the installation methodology will be the same, which will be, we will look at installing some type of supportive excavation system which will hold back the earth. We will look at dewatering that excavation with a temporary dewatering system, whether it's in combination with the supportive excavation, the sheeting system, or the slide rail, or the trench boxes. So we will be able to maintain the groundwater below the depth of the excavation during the installation of the system. The tanks will be installed, and then we'll backfill the excavation, and then the temporary dewatering system can get turned off.
And the dewatering is going to be routed through your treatment system, I assume?
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Next question. Plan C401, note number 6 states that the storm trap will act as a temporary detention system. Wouldn't that expose it to contaminated sediment? If the system is used in a temporary condition, the outlet would be blocked and any effluent from the dewatering would be pumped into the treatment system. So no, that wouldn't be an issue. Next question, explain how the dewatering system at the rear works. Who operates it? How often is it tested? How will filtered solids be disposed of? The general contractor will be responsible for the operation of the dewatering system and will rely on support from a qualified subcontractor. Per the EPA permit requirements, the system will be tested monthly for discharge compliance. Additionally, the system is inspected daily and documented. Any accumulated sediments that require removal are first tested and then sent to an approved disposal facility. Next question.
Mr. Lucas, for one,
Sure.
can you've got this up here, and I believe that system is visible here. So if people are watching this and have no idea what we're talking about, could you explain where this is on that plan that you have?
Zoom back in here.
And where it's being pumped to?
Bob, do you want to run through that while I kind of guide you through it here?
Sure. So at the plan that you're looking at, the all the collected water, which will be basically from the low point of the site, will get pumped up to that, I'm going to call it purple tank area on the right-hand side. right there, correct. So that will be the dewatering treatment system. And that treatment system will be comprised of a large 18,000 gallon frac tank. Here you go. And then there'll be other types of treatment that will treat the water. It will be dependent on the chemicals in the water, but this is what we're anticipating right now, and basically runs through a series of filters and carbon treatment systems, and then ultimately will get discharged. I believe we have two different options proposed. So correct. So there's one that would go into the canal, and then the other would be a discharge into the stormwater system itself.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Are you allowed to discharge dewatering into a stormwater system? I thought that was prohibited.
The plan is to discharge into the municipal drainage system, but we'll have to work with the DPW if they're amenable to that. If not, the other location would be to discharge adjacent to the tank here in the upland before it.
I was under the impression discharging to a stormwater system was not allowed.
No, there's a EPA permit, and
Yep.
John can chime in, or Joe, but it's called the DRGP. So there'll be a process that we need to apply for. And the EPA will review that permit in conjunction with the local jurisdiction. But no, you can discharge into a municipal system as long as you meet the appropriate discharge requirements with your effluent.
And you get this EPA permit.
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
And we proposed the two locations because we'd like to discharge into the municipal system, but we've given an alternative that we're seeking approval for if that's not, for some reason, if the DPW says no, or there's another issue with obtaining the permit. We don't foresee that, but we're trying to avoid coming back, so we've provided a second option for discharge, which we think is just as appropriate.
The dewatering is going to be dewatering basically the Nyanza plume, correct?
It will be discharging the contaminants located on the site.
Which is the Nyanza plume. Am I not correct in that?
I understand there are contaminants on the site from that as far as the boundaries. George, do you want to?
I mean, it's a yes or no question.
I guess there's been some question about whether this is technically a Superfund site or not, but yes,
I'm not
this is the
asking about whether it's
contaminants
a
associated
Superfund
with it.
site. It's
Right.
the plume coming out of Nyanza,
Correct.
which EPA has mapped. It shows it going under this property. You're dewatering that plume to build this facility. So is it not correct you're dewatering the Nyanza plume? I mean, doesn't A equal B?
I can
There's
chime
been
in.
some question about terminology. Go ahead, Bob, thank you.
Sorry, yeah. I think dewatering is going to be twofold. There will be some dewatering for the installation of that storm trap unit.
Yeah.
But I'd say most of the dewatering is going to be subject to the stormwater that comes on site. So the rainwater that hits the soil or during construction is going to accumulate on the site, and that's going to get pumped up and treated. So it's not essentially the Nyanza plume, but it's just the rain and surface water that's in contact with the surface soils.
But you said that you need to lower the groundwater level while you build this storm treat system, correct?
That is correct. For that one storm trap system, yes, we will be.
Okay. Isn't that water you're dewatering the groundwater that's essentially the Nyanza plume?
Yes, it would effectively be, according to George, we're at the down gradient edge of the Nyanza plume, that our site. So yes, that storm trap would be dewatering that
Okay.
that area.
So you're going to be dewatering this material, running it through your treatment system, and testing it to make sure it's clean when it comes out the other end before you discharge it back to the river or the stormwater system?
Yes.
How frequently does that occur?
Chris, I can jump in here, at least
Okay.
in terms of if we do this under the DRGP.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe. Thank you. Introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, this is Joe Lombardo with McPhail Associates.
Oh, okay.
So if this is done under the EPA DGRP, the typical process would be is first we get current groundwater data, we would submit that in an application to the EPA. Obviously, there's things we know going in that are going to have to be treated for the chlorinated solvents, the CVOCs associated with Nyanza, as well as on-site. When we get the approval, the EPA they typically issue a letter of approval with a list of contaminants that we're supposed to test for, and allowable discharge limits. So from the day of startup, the first week that the system is put online, so to speak, the EPA requires 2 days of sampling and testing of both the influent into the system and the effluent post-treatment. That it's day one, and then a second day sometime thereafter in the first week, not consecutive days. So if day one's a Monday, we don't test the second time Tuesday, it's Wednesday or after. Assuming that data comes back favorable, meaning the system is appropriately treating the contaminants, then discharge would continue and it moves to monthly thereafter.
Is there any delay in actual discharge until you get those test results back?
There is not required by the permit, no.
So if the system isn't working, how long does it take to get the test results back?
That first week, the testing would each be done on a 48-hour turnaround time basis.
So you might be pumping for 48 hours and you might find you're pumping contaminants.
Theoretically, yes, but with these systems, this is unfortunately a fairly common thing that needs to be treated in groundwater discharge systems. And when you have the data in advance, they're fairly successful, very successful on how to treat these things.
Would it make more sense to test the system before you go into production and do a trial pump where you test the water coming in, test the water going out, and containerize the effluent, and then shut it down, get your test results back, and find out if it worked?
Theoretically, it's possible. We have I think as Bob said, an 18,000 gallon tank coming on site, and depending on what the first excavation is and how much water we're coming into a tank, might be difficult to maintain that dewatering, the pumping, while trying to hold it into a tank or getting a second tank to the site. I can defer to others here in the meeting on whether we would do that or not. It is feasible, but I would say that it's not something required under the permit by EPA.
Okay.
And I think a simple condition here too, we're subject to that EPA permit. So we're this is the EPA specialty with these type of sites. So I think there's some assurance here knowing that maybe a condition would warrant that we follow the permit conditions and the requirements and the reporting and such.
I have a quick question for you. The discharge into the municipal system, isn't that the same system that drains into
The canal.
the canal? So wouldn't it be draining right back into the canal? Right at that head wall where the raceway comes out?
John, I'm not as familiar with the drainage there. Are you familiar?
It all goes to the same spot.
Okay, so it really doesn't make any difference where you dump this stuff, it's going to end up in the same place.
Yeah, it's just a process.
Okay.
Yeah, so if ultimately it goes to the surface water, then it would be under the EPA DRGP permit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Have you ever cleaned up a site of this magnitude as proximate to a river as 10 to 60? If so, provide supporting documentation. Most projects that Callahan completes require some level of managing contaminated soils. They're very experienced in regulatory requirements when excavating and disposing of this soil. They've also completed numerous waterfront projects that require enhanced environmental best management practices for preventing impacts to the resource area. I mean, I'm sure you can look into it. Callahan's definitely been through this rodeo numerous times. So they're more than qualified to handle this site, which is why Mr. Engler brought them into the project. Next question, what were the findings of the slab tests at 10 Main Street? Why were they done? Why only at 10 Main? Soil gas was monitored at 10 Main Street since that building will remain on site. The testing indicated that all tested compounds were below Mass DEP soil gas commercial screening values. Note that 10 Main Street will remain a commercial building and a vapor barrier will be installed in the building during redevelopment of the property.
I'll read that answer again.
Sure. Soil gas was monitored at 10 Main Street because the building is proposed to remain on the site. The testing indicated that all the tested compounds were below Mass DEP soil gas commercial screening values. So we didn't have any hits or anything that was an issue with Mass DEP standards. Note that the building will remain a commercial building, therefore a vapor barrier will be installed during redevelopment of the property to provide additional protection.
That's not, can we come back to that one? Because that's not consistent with what it says in the RAM report.
Sure.
We can come back to that one, so we don't get sidetracked. Anyone have anything else on that? Or we can move to the next one.
Okay. Next question, when were the individual test wells installed? Who installed them? Who paid for that work? Do you want to come back to that one too, Carl? Tied to the.
I'm sorry, I was still reviewing this. These aren't my questions, by the way.
Do you want to circle back to that one with the RAM report, or do you want?
When were the individual tests installed? Is that the one who paid for them? And
yeah, who installed them and who paid for them? Do you
yeah,
want
if you have an answer to that, you can.
I'm George Campbell, Campbell Environmental, and I'm not sure specifically which wells you're asking about.
Well, they're not my questions, Mr. Campbell, but it says the previous question asks about the sub-slab on 10 Main Street, which I believe you did in 2024?
Correct.
Yep. Okay. So the follow-up question was, when were the test wells installed, who installed them, and who paid for the work? So I'm assuming that you installed them, and I guess the question is, who were you working for?
So going back, the phase 2 and previous site closure, that was done by a previous consultant on the site. So there's been a succession of monitoring wells and soil borings installed.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But these particular ones at 10, I think, are relatively new ones.
The soil gas points.
Right.
Absolutely, that was installed on behalf of the applicant, and that was installed in 24.
Okay.
2024.
And what you were saying before is the previous ones on the periphery were done earlier by earlier applicants or earlier.
Yeah, to reach site closure, the phase 2 comprehensive site assessment and regulatory closure in 2011, monitoring wells and soil borings were installed, and soil gas points were installed previously on behalf of the property owner.
And for the most part, those are outside the building around the periphery?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay.
And also to be clear and try to be comprehensive, to answer your question, in 2022 and 2024, additional monitoring wells were installed on the site on behalf of the applicant and the property owner.
Okay. Okay, we're going to come back to the answer, the previous answer in a few minutes. So thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Next question. If soils are not pre-characterized and something unexpected is found, how will that soil be stored? What safeguards against excessive rain? The applicant plans to pre-characterize the existing site soil that is anticipated to be accessed to the project for off-site reuse and disposal prior to the start of construction. Results of that work, along with recommendations for handling and management of site soils, will be documented in the soil management plan for use by the contractor, which we've provided you a copy of. The soil data will be included in soil approval packages prepared by the developer's licensed site professional for each of the contractor's proposed soil receiving facilities for review and approval prior to the start of excavation, thus allowing the contractor to excavate and directly load soil into trucks for off-site transport and disposal, i.e. the load and go method, minimizing the need and/or duration of on-site soil stockpiles. Soil that is stockpiled on site will be covered with secured tarpaulins or polyethylene sheets and surrounded by straw wattles and/or silt fencing. So the goal is to get as much off the site immediately as quickly as possible and minimize our stockpiles to prevent any issues. Next question. Have you done a study on the cumulative impact to resource areas of altering soils, floodplain alteration, stormwater changes, and a large residential occupancy? The original NOI application that we provided includes a cumulative impact analysis for the resource areas we're required to analyze, including bordering land subject to flooding and riverfront area, as required by the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act and the regulations. I know there'll be more discussion on this at a later date, once the peer review is completed.
But can I just jump in for 1 second? One of the, we mentioned earlier that we're having a peer review of this work done. It hasn't been done yet, and so obviously we haven't read it yet. But what we have asked for is for them to check for the adequacy as well as the accuracy of this test. So people that are concerned about the cumulative effects and whether we're doing enough to test, that will be determined by the peer reviewer. And I'm sure we'll be weighing in, but we'll defer to their expertise on that.
So this question was more specific to contaminants and a cumulative impact analysis? That's, we read this differently. I just want to make sure we understand the question.
How did you read it again?
So typically a cumulative impact analysis to resource areas involves the specific resource areas and analyzing the overall project. So for example, we would analyze bordering land subject to flooding in the riverfront area and how we're impacting it and how we're complying with the performance standards.
Well, I think the way I read this question, and again, it's not my question, is we're taking these sequentially of contamination,
right,
floodplain, stormwater, and wetlands. I thought this question suggested what is the cumulative effect on all of these things together, not just individually. And that's how I read the question.
I think our original application addresses that and we provided additional information to support and make sure that I think we're providing a net benefit to the site, not an impact. So I think we've documented that well. If there's more clarity needed, I guess we'll need elaboration on the question to answer that, or we can wait for the peer review.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Okay, thank you.
Next question. On the first site walk, water was observed exiting the raceway. Where is it coming from? How will development change that outflow, downstream impact? Based on the review of the video of the raceway, there are no additional connections to the structure and flow was not observed. As such, it appears that any water within the raceway is likely from the groundwater. The proposal is for the raceway will either be filled or removed as part of the project, and the downgradient wetlands and waterways will be improved once the structure is removed. Again, we're testing the upgradient and the downgradient point as well, so if there are any issues in there, that'll either be removed as part of the project or capped and filled in appropriately. We have the team here if you want more detail on the raceway and how we're going to handle that, but that's the general approach we're taking right now. Bob, Joe, I don't know if there's anything further you wanted to add on how we're handling the raceway?
None on my end.
No,
Okay.
no, that covers it. Well,
All right, thank you. Sure.
Do you have any idea how this raceway is constructed?
I do not. I don't know if anyone
Does
else
anybody?
I
Let's put
don't.
it that way. I mean, is it a concrete, essentially U-shaped trench? Does it have a concrete bottom? Does it have a solid, I mean, a natural soil bottom? What is it?
John, you've seen the video, correct?
It's an arch. I think it was hard. I can go back and look. The bottom wasn't really all that visible. I can go back and try to confirm and answer that question. But it was arched based on my recollection.
So you don't know whether or not, I mean, if it was a concrete bottom, groundwater theoretically couldn't infiltrate.
Theoretically. But
Well,
it's all, it's
yeah,
an old
but
structure.
So
No, I was
if
gonna
there's
say
flow,
it's
that
over
means it's
100.
coming in from the other end. Right?
Well, there's
I
no
would
flow in
think-
there. I mean, we could take a second look at the video and get back to you on that.
All right.
Who's speaking? I'm sorry, Chris.
That's John Cusick.
John?
Yeah, I apologize, Chris. I was speaking over you.
Yeah, that's okay. Did you observe the same area that we observed at the beginning of the, outside the building, where the raceway meets the culvert coming underneath Myrtle Street?
Under the wood boards?
Yeah, that's to Mr. Cusick.
I don't know if I understand that. The question, I wasn't at the last site walk.
Have you seen it before, John? Have you flipped the boards and looked under there personally?
I have not flipped the
Okay.
board, no.
All right.
No, I was
I mean,
looking for video.
from what we saw, I mean, that's the entranceway to it. I don't know what it, if there's an arch internal. We can take a second look at the video.
Yeah,
and
it was
we
hard
can
to see the
provide a,
bottom, but it did look like it was made out of concrete, the two canals.
But it looked fairly flat, almost like a box in there. So we'll take a second look at the video and we can write a little short summary describing it a little better for the board if that helps. Next question is the full path of the raceway shown on any plans. Are there accesses to it inside the existing buildings? Yes, we have the full raceway is shown on the plans. This plan does show it as do the other plans. This is the location here. On this plan, this is where the wooden planks are. There's a culverted pipe that runs here. This is where the raceway starts, and these two dash lines through the building are the raceway, and where it discharges at the canal. There is no access inside the building. It would be under the wooden planks or where it discharges to the canal. Next question, contamination of the raceway. Would a sample at the outflow give good expectations of what would be found? As we stated, we're sampling north of the building and the canal, so we believe that's a very reasonable expectation of what can be found in there. Okay, those are the, sorry.
Okay, why don't we go back to revisit the answer to the question about 10. Okay, and then we'll move on to Jean's questions.
Sure, so that question was.
Okay, yeah, the question was, what were the findings of the sub-slab tests on 10 Main Street? Why were they done, and why were they only performed at 10 Main Street? If you want to read your answer, and I will read what I've read in the RAM report that doesn't seem to corroborate that, and maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong.
Okay. The response is the soil gas was monitored at 10 Main since that building is proposed to remain at the site. The testing indicated that all tested compounds were below Mass DEP soil gas commercial screening values. Note that the building will remain a commercial building and a vapor barrier will be installed during the redevelopment of the property.
Okay. So I'm going to amend my dissent because you said below Mass DEP commercial screening values, which were true, but it suggests that they weren't high, and they were. What it says in your RAM report was TCE was detected at SG1 and SG3 samples at 19.1 and 14.7 micrograms per cubic liter, I believe, meter. Cis-1,2-dichloroethylene was detected at SG3 at 7.33. No other VOCs were detected in soil gas. Note that the TCE in SG3 exceeded the Mass DEP sub-slab residential screening values, but both were below the Mass DEP commercial screening values. And I think that that's important because for residential, and I realize that this is not a residential development, what I'm suggesting is that there are TCE and PCE present, and the levels were 19.1 and 46.7 in those two testing sites, and the guideline for DEP, at least for residential, is 2, and so that's pretty significantly higher. So to your point, yes, they were lower than commercial screening values, but I thought that your answer kind of suggested that there was no presence, and that's not true. So I just want to make
Right,
that-
yeah, we weren't saying there's no presence. We're following the Mass DEP guidelines, and that's what we've met here, because this will be a commercial building. We're below the Mass DEP standards. We all have metrics. You follow the 5,000 square foot threshold for wetlands. We follow the commercial guideline, Mass DEP standards here, and that's what we've done. So it's
Okay. Is that why they were done? That, I don't believe that question was answered. Why were they done? Why were there 4 test sites in that building? Was that the reason for
I
that?
believe it was because it was to remain, correct? Yes.
What's that?
It was because the building's proposed to remain, so
Okay.
we were looking for current sampling.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
You've said that one of the things to address this is to put a liner down.
A vapor barrier.
Does that entail pulling up the concrete floor? How does that work?
Joe, Bob, would you address, do you guys have a vision for how this is happening?
Sorry, I can jump. You're talking about the vapor barrier that's below the proposed slab, correct?
Proposed below building 10.
10, and I don't know, the 20 wasn't tested, but it's right next to 10, so has that got a problem too?
Yeah, so the vapor barrier that we're talking about is going under the proposed slab, right?
Well, no, we're talking about a
under an
vapor
existing.
barrier under number 10.
If I can just add, you certainly can add a vapor barrier to an existing structure without removing the foundation. So that's absolutely can be done. I'll defer to Bob on the construction, but you can add a vapor barrier to an existing building,
So
absolutely.
Would you lay down plastic and then put concrete back over it?
It might not be plastic, it might be another material, like a geomembrane. But yes, what you're saying is correct. You'd lay down the vapor barrier and then you'd cover it with concrete.
Okay.
Yeah, we have done that on multiple renovation projects where you remove the existing slab, remove enough material to put down the your sub-base material, which is a stone, which the gases can vent through. Put your vapor barrier down, which again is typically a thicker product, whether it's a 20 or 30 mil product, and then the concrete slab gets installed above that.
Are you, when you say removing some of the slab, are you talking about putting like a mitigation system in, a venting system? Around the perimeter on the interior?
Yeah, we,
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I didn't say anything.
Did
I was
you-
waiting for one of you guys to answer.
We didn't hear an answer.
no, this is Joe from McPhail. George did let me know if I'm speaking incorrectly here, but typically for a site like this, you would have the vapor membrane in conjunction with at least a passive ventilation system.
Okay.
It kind of akin to what you might see if you're familiar at all with like a radon mitigation system.
Yeah.
Permeable gravel or crushed stone layer under the slab with X number of vertical riser ventilation pipes.
We definitely want to answer your questions. I feel like we're getting a little more into health and safety issues, which is not the commission's purview. We're
gotcha.
handling, this is a gas issue for health and safety, which we meet the state requirements for. I think, focus here is really
you're
water
right.
and soil contaminants.
But
We
it
obviously
is
wanna answer
coming
these,
from
but-
soil. I guess where we're going, Chris, with this is what's in the soil. And you
Right.
don't have gas without contaminated soil. So,
Right, and we're focused
we'll
on-
find that out eventually, so.
Right, and the commission's purview is the soil and the water, not necessarily the gas that's penetrating into a building, or in this case, won't be because we're putting a barrier in place if there was any gas there.
Okay. Okay, if no one else on the commission has any questions on those particular questions, we can move on to the next set, if that's okay with you, Chris.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, thank you. So that addresses the questions from several of the commission members. The next set were specifically from Mr. Gene Crouch here, so we have a few to go through. So I'll be looking at you, Rich. Anybody else
You don't
chime in?
have to look at me all the time.
So the first question is, number one, is pavement and buildings removed and soil tested? Seems late in the process. First bullet was the concrete flooring under the buildings will likely also be contaminated. When will that be tested? That goes back to our previous response for soil testing methodology. For the building itself, prior to demolition, the developer intends to engage a consultant to perform a hazardous materials hazmat survey of the existing building materials, including sampling and testing of the various building materials. Based on the results, abatement will be performed as may be necessary prior to demolition and offsite disposal. So they'll do a full hazmat survey to make sure they know where things need to go and be taken off.
So there's going to be more than the borings that are shown here.
Joe, I'll defer to you exactly how that hazmat survey is done.
Yes, that's a separate sub-consultant that would, I mean, we're talking physically testing building materials, the coatings on concrete, caulkings, mastics, all those type of things. So if any abatement of anything in the building needs to be done, that would happen before bulk demolition and removal of solid waste. That's separate, that's completely separate from what is happening with soil and groundwater analysis.
You may have contaminated concrete in the floors under these, spaces in this, it was a factory. And concrete, as you know, is porous, so things sink in, and so that concrete could actually be contaminated. When you break that up for the demolition work, do you separate that out if it needs to be handled differently? Do you dispose of that at a landfill somewhere, a lined landfill?
Yeah, I mean, Bob, you can piggyback on this, but yeah, based on the testing of various building materials, if anything is found to be contaminated with, you name it, it will be handled appropriately and disposed of at a solid waste facility that can accept that particular material with that particular contaminant.
Okay.
And yes, it would be segregated from other non-contaminated materials.
I just want to comment that this would also apply to any slab removal in Building 10, which we just talked about, for if you need to remove that, put in a vapor barrier and put in a replacement slab.
Right, this would apply to anything being demolished on the site, correct, yes. And that, I think, the second bullet is what is the plan for testing the concrete floors in the building, which we discussed, and then the third is testing this late in construction could delay the project. How will this not cause a delay? I mean, I think this is standard practice for demolition of a building. In many buildings you find asbestos, that's all planned for as part of this, so that we don't anticipate a delay from this.
Okay.
Did you say earlier, Chris, that, and I think that I did hear you correctly, that you're going to eventually do a full characterization of the site?
Correct.
Okay. But preliminary to that, you're doing these testing borings that we're talking about earlier this evening?
Correct.
Okay. So we eventually will know what is where on the entire site?
Correct. They'll do a full characterization specifically to disposal. They'll characterize it, and then it'll be shipped off-site once the testing comes back.
Okay.
And we'll get to that. But yes. Next question, number 2. Prior site closure, pre-2022. Please explain the purpose of the site closure. Under the Massachusetts Contingency Plan, the MCP, contaminated sites need to reach a regulatory endpoint. This regulatory endpoint or site closure is reached when there is a finding that the contaminated site poses no significant risk to human health and the environment. This regulatory endpoint or regulatory site closure was reached in 2011, approximately 15 years ago.
And that was related to the potential impacts from Nyanza or on-site contamination?
It was both.
Did you say both?
He said it was both. Mr. Campbell said it was both.
Okay.
Okay. Number 3, AUL prohibiting residential use. When will the AUL be changed to allow residential use? An amendment to the existing AUL, which will include an updated risk assessment to allow for residential use of the site, will be prepared upon completion of construction. So that'll be done when the work's completed.
So you have to wait until the building's built to change the AUL?
Yes.
And what if it doesn't get changed?
It's, under the Massachusetts contingency plan, it's following response actions or when the reports are filed, including a new AUL. It's at the end of the process.
And again, if for whatever reason it didn't warrant an AUL that allowed residential occupation, what happens?
You're talking a hypothetical, but
Yeah.
I have every confidence that
They
with
would, huh?
the response actions conducted, a new AUL will be filed. It'll be appropriate to file a new AUL.
So technically, you're still going to have an AUL on the property?
Correct.
What will that limit?
Is the maintaining the vapor barriers, for example, there'll be
Oh,
requirements.
so it'll stipulate things like that?
Absolutely. Residential development above an open-air garage, there'll be requirements, and those
No
are
gardening?
examples. And LSP oversight,
Forever?
forever.
No. You got a good job.
For those of you who have no idea what we're talking about here, an AUL is a use limitation on the property. The MCP is the Massachusetts Contingency Plan, which is a template for cleaning up contaminated sites. You just can't go in there with a pickup truck and a backhoe and start moving things. There's a whole plan that's mapped out under the state regs that need to be followed. And an LSP is a licensed site professional, and that is an environmental engineer who is licensed to oversee these cleanups. Mr. Campbell is an LSP. Okay.
Thank you. The next question, number 4, is large stormwater tank, groundwater 2.5 feet below grade, excavation about 10 feet within the Nyanza plume. We touched on this already.
Yep.
The applicant's willing to explore some storage systems that could require list deep excavation, but will still provide the required volume. You had a bullet, how will contaminated groundwater be managed during construction of the tank? Confirmed soil excavated from the tank will be stockpiled and tested before reuse on-site and removal. Soil excavated from within groundwater will be saturated and muddy. How will this material be handled and contained? And excavation below groundwater will likely collapse sidewalls. Will the excavation be stabilized and how? In short, temporary support of excavation will be used in conjunction with the localized dewatering system to manage the groundwater. Any soil that cannot be reused will be tested prior to off-site disposal. The temporary support of the excavation system will separate the groundwater from the excavation. The localized dewatering system will be operated prior to any bulk excavation to remove as much of the saturated soil condition as possible. Soil will be stockpiled and allowed to decant prior to reuse or off-site disposal. And temporary supportive excavation such as trench boxes, sheets, or a slide rail system will be used to make the work area safe. So we think that's appropriate and adequate for the site. Question number 5, dewatering of excavations for tank, stormwater features, and utilities. First bullet, will the dewatering operation keep up with the infiltration of contaminated groundwater into the excavation? Yes, it'll be designed in conjunction with the geotechnical engineer who will recommend flow rates based upon field investigation studies. Additionally, the dewatering system can be field modified to account for fluctuations in the flow rates. The next bullet was, how has the potential infiltration rate at the tank site been determined to confirm adequate pumpkin treatment and holding capability? Same as the previous response. What measures are proposed? Sorry. What measures are proposed to prevent infiltration of contaminated groundwater into the completed tank and stormwater system? As we said before, they'll only collect surface water runoff from rain events and will not be hydraulically connected to the groundwater. How will a liner be installed while groundwater is able to infiltrate the excavation? Temporary supportive excavation will be used in conjunction with the local dewatering system to manage the groundwater prior to the installation of the tank and the liner. If the tank is sealed against infiltration, what keeps the empty tank from becoming buoyant and being pushed out of the ground? The tank will be a precast concrete tank designed to resist the uplift force of the groundwater. This is typically done by adding weight to the tank by increasing the thickness of the bottom or by adding flanges at the bottom which allow additional soil pressure around the perimeter of the tank to offset the uplift force. The precast tank will be designed and stamped by a professional engineer. Number 6, treatment train schematic. You asked for a copy of what it is, a treatment train, which we provided. You have a copy of. That's the treatment train schematic on record.
Is one question on this, you show there's a large tank and then a whole bunch of other things, components of it. Are these all containerized or palletized, so it's all one unit, or are these separate units that are linked together?
Good question. Bob, Joe?
Yeah, they're separate units that are linked together. Obviously, the tank is one piece, and then each one of the other treatment pieces is a separate piece that's linked together with piping.
So if there's, I mean, you're gonna be mucking around, digging and so forth, I'm assuming you're gonna have some pretty turbid water to run through the system that I would expect would overwhelm your filter bags pretty quickly.
Yeah, and that's when we look at the flow rate, look at the amount of solids within there. That may end up needing 2 tanks to help settle it out, or we may add some flocculant inside the tank as well, which will also help knock out some of the solids.
So the tank itself is going to serve as a settling tank,
That is correct, yes.
not just like a holding tank or reservoir.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
I just had a quick question about this. So is this whole system going to be below ground, or is it kind of a combination?
No,
It's gonna be
No,
some-
this
it's gonna be
is
above
above.
ground?
it'll be above ground.
So
above
does
ground.
that, what's the resilience to cold weather,
Oh, well, good.
freezing
Yeah,
conditions?
great,
Because we,
great.
yeah,
Great
Some boat-
question. Typically during the winter seasons, what we do is we put some type of tent system over the top of this, and then you pump in some heat to make sure that obviously nothing freezes, and that obviously keeps the snow off the system as well.
so that's going to be part of the regular maintenance for this system, since it's not just for construction, it's for always, right?
That is
this-
correct for
This is
stormwater
just
as
for
well.
construction.
Just construction, okay.
One other question, if you do need to switch out one of these components in the midst of it, what do you have to shut down pumping and swap out a bag or a carbon filter, or how does that work?
Yeah, typically some of these systems are set up in parallel, so you can take one system offline temporarily
I got you, yep.
without interrupting it.
So that's what this is gonna be?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Have you done anything this elaborate before? This seems like an elaborate pumping system.
I would-
Anyone can answer that, yeah.
Yeah, this is fairly standard system we see quite often on excavation sites.
Okay. That's quite a distance from the back of the property to almost to the front of the property. So, okay, thank you.
Next question, number 7, treatment train testing. How frequently will the inflow and outflow water be tested from the treatment train? The U.S. EPA Dewatering and Remediation General Permit, as Joe mentioned, the DRGP, requires that the dewatering system influent and effluent be tested 2 times during the first week of the system operation, including day 1 of startup. The testing will be submitted to the lab at a 48-hour turnaround time. Upon confirmation that the treatment train is operating as designed, the effluent will be sampled and tested monthly thereafter with a standard 1-week turnaround time in accordance with the DRGP. So we've answered that. How long will it take to receive lab results from the water testing? We noted 48 hours during the first 2 events in the first week and then 1 week after that. How will the filtered water be held while waiting for test results? I think we've discussed quite a bit of this. The DRGP does not require that filtered water be held while waiting for results. Per the DRGP, discharge must be halted as soon as possible, but no later than 72 hours if 1 or more of the tested parameters fails to meet the allowable discharge limits. Discharge may resume upon implementation of corrective actions, at which time a confirmatory discharge sample must be obtained and tested on a rush turnaround time.
So, let me just, you said that if it fails the testing, you can continue to pump for 72 hours? Did I hear that right?
You did hear that correctly. That's what the language of the permit says. I can speak for us with McPhail, any project where we're overseeing and monitoring one of these systems. If we get a test result that fails, we're turning that news around to the client, the developer, architect, and the contractor right away. We're not waiting 72 hours. That's stipulating what the permit says, but we notify immediately.
Now, if this system works as intended, why would it fail?
Well, there's always,
Well,
go ahead, Joe.
Oh, I mean, that it's a bit hypothetical. Anything can happen. Bags fill up, sedimentation bag might fill up quicker than anticipated. Rain event increases a little bit of flow, so things, foul up a little bit faster than a normal discharge and treatment time period. They happen. We can't guarantee that it's never going to happen, but it tends to be infrequent.
And I'll just add on that too, Joe. I think a lot of people look at things reactively. This team's proactive. There are a lot of contingencies in place to be proactive, not reactive. And some of these permits require that. The RGP has components, so it's, we want to be proactive here. We're not trying to be reactive like, oops, something happened, let's fix it. We're trying to look at possible scenarios and incorporate them into this project design.
The permit that you're talking about with regard to this pumping is issued by who?
It's the US EPA.
Okay, doesn't seem like there's much emphasis on the P if they allow you to pump for 72 hours. You said the EPA, correct?
Yep.
Yes, Environmental Protection Agency.
Okay.
That's a policy issue. That's take up with your senator.
Is this DRGP permit something that's actually reviewed by somebody, or is it like an RGP where you sign up and register with EPA and you, after 2 hours or 24 hours or something like that, you can do whatever you want?
No, it does get reviewed, and they issue but there's a general permit number in the state, but they do issue a project-specific permit number with project-specific requirements and discharge limits to meet.
Well, I mean, I've dealt with RGP before, and it's basically just a register to register.
Not anymore.
Okay, this is different now.
They've changed it.
EPA has changed a lot. The like the NIPT's construction general permit, for example, they are reviewing those and they're denying applications or forcing people to do additional work if you don't provide the proper documentation.
Okay.
They've tightened up a lot of the loopholes that some engineers try to squeeze through,
Okay, that's good to hear.
at least on the CGP anyway.
How will this system be powered? Will it be street or generator? Are you bringing power off the street to power it, or are you gonna run it on a generator?
It would initially probably be run off of a generator until we establish temporary power on site. So the temporary power would run the dewatering system as well as all of our construction-related power needs.
You'll have backup generator?
Yes, when it's on generator, yes, that's correct. There's an online generator and then a standby generator.
Okay, thank you.
Number 8, excavated soil stockpiles. How long will it take to get lab results back on the stockpiles? And then I believe that it'll take 5 days, 5 business days to get results back. How large will the temporary stockpiles be in cubic yards while waiting for the test results? The stockpiles will vary in size from 100 to 300 cubic yards. The plan shows one location for a temporary stockpile. How much soil can be held there? That proposed location on the plan can hold up to 300 cubic yards. 300 cubic yards, which is what the max will be holding for their lab results. Number 9, flood event during construction. How will the site be secured if a flood event occurs where floodwater contacts contaminated soils that could be released to the river? John, did you want to address that one?
Yeah, and it's kind of similar to the next question, but I think, number one, it's extremely rare that would happen. However, in the odd chance that it does happen, you generally have advanced warning and you're able to pull some things into play. The one benefit that this site certainly has is being in the location that it's in. As part of our plan would be plugging the outlet holes. So the site would essentially be holding water back in and of itself within the site. At that point, we would have time to bring on additional treatment structures if we ever needed to do that. But again, the site is essentially in a bowl that would be able to capture what is coming onto the site and getting in contact with anything we wouldn't want it getting in contact with.
Thank you. Number 10, intense rainfall during construction. How will the site be stabilized to prevent erosion during a storm event? As John just said, the existing drains will be plugged and the site will function as a larger detention basin, so the site will become, in effect, a bowl that we can contain everything.
If that happened, I mean, you really couldn't go back to work there for maybe weeks because it would take that long for the site to dry out, wouldn't it?
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's really don't quite know. There would be some level of time that we would need to pump things out and deal with everything.
I mean, that could be a long time in reality. I mean, like you say, if you plug those holes, there's no way for the water to go.
Right.
And
Yep.
it's got high groundwater, so it's going to take a while for that water to infiltrate.
Correct.
And your dewatering system, I believe that you mentioned last time, is not built to deal with floods. It's built to deal with stormwater.
It'll deal with the volume of water that enters it, correct? Whether it's from flood or rain.
Well, I thought you said that it wouldn't deal with the flood. It wouldn't be able to pump up the site. Am I wrong?
I think we're talking two different things. We're talking the final site. The final stormwater system isn't designed to pump down the flood instantaneously. It's designed to work as if the existing conditions work. That's under the proposed system. I think the question was more under the existing during construction, if I didn't misunderstand that.
Okay.
So that's what I was saying at that point. Everything's kind of plugged up and we're really self-contained. And really at that point, the risk, the timing risk is on us to be able to deal with that. I think what we've got going for us is, like I said, it's in a bowl and we feel comfortable that we can control it. If it has to take time to address it, we acknowledge that.
Okay. Thank you.
So if you getting back to my first part of that question was if there was a flood coming, your suggestion was to plug the holes to not allow flood water onto the site.
Correct.
So
So
you're,
it's really not not so much on the site, it's really off the site.
well, all right, both. But my concern about bordering land subject to flooding is that you would then be denying flood storage volume to the floodplain, which means that flood water is going to go somewhere else onto somebody else's property. That's the whole reason why you can't do that.
So again, I would think that's more of an ineffective flow. And then the floodwaters would still get to the site over the elevation of the wall. You know, there would still be some, if we actually hit a flood of that magnitude, it would go over the wall.
Can you give us some sort of documentation about this ineffective flow you keep referring to?
We plan to provide some additional information that Beals and Thomas requested, and then once their peer review is completed, we'll be providing a more detailed response to the floodplain issues, including
Okay.
that
Because
statement.
I have never seen that term used in the Wetlands Protection Act regulations. So I don't know what that means to us.
Sure. We can provide some additional information, and we're treating in the terms of FEMA, but we can provide some additional information to you.
Okay, well, I mean, we're going to get into floodplain, I guess, after this anyway, so maybe we wait till then.
I'd recommend that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it for questions, Chris?
We had, since the rainwater will have contacted contaminated soil and likely contain turbidity, will ponded rainwater be routed through the treatment system and subject to the testing protocol? Yes. I think that addresses all the commission comments that we've received to date in writing. I understand, Carl, you have some additional questions on the RAM report. If you want to go through those now, I'll bring George up here to.
Well, hold on one second. We ended up talking a lot about dewatering and stormwater this evening and not a whole lot about contamination. My questions are specifically about contamination, and I think I would like to reserve them until the peer review is done and we have our peer reviewer here that could help me understand my questions before asking them or help explain them if they need to be explained. So I'd like to reserve my questions until we meet again to talk about contamination with the peer reviewer present.
Give me 1 second, please. Yeah, we're amenable to that.
Okay.
Are you, based on the questions we've received, are you looking for a written response to the questions from the commission, or is what we presented tonight satisfactory to, address the majority of those? I don't know how you want us to proceed with
Commissioners
that.
feel?
It sounds like you're reading most of the answers, so if you have written answers, it would be nice just to have those for the record that we could refer back to.
We can do that.
Yeah. We gave you the courtesy of written questions. It'd be nice to get the
No,
written
that's-
answers.
No, that's not a problem. That's why I asked. I don't know if.
Yeah, you can submit those to Sophia and Becca.
Okay, thank you.
I have one quick question about the graphic you have up. For the storm treat, what, I keep saying storm treat, that's something different, I believe.
The storm trap.
Trap, thank you. It's in the back of the building. It's the dark green rectangle with the white rectangle in the middle. Is
That's right
that
here.
correct?
So what's the question?
That's the storm trap?
Yes.
You mentioned about making changes to it. Does that represent what's proposed now in terms of its size, or does the dark green represent the enlarged, shallower system? That's the system as designed? Okay. All right. I was just curious why there was a white hole in it, that's all.
I think it's a label. I can't read it on here.
Oh,
It's a label.
oh,
I
okay,
believe it's a label.
got it. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Lucas, if it okay with you, I'd like to open it up to public comment, and then you can come back and we can discuss moving forward.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, if there are any questions, please come up to the
Could
podium.
I say something first?
Sure.
I just want to state for the record, at the site visit, since we had a quorum of the members, we weren't supposed to do any deliberations or expressing of opinions. There were a couple of things expressed that bordered on that, and so for the, just to be fully disclosing so that there are no concerns going forward, two things that were mentioned. We mentioned several times that there's now going to be a test at the inflow and the outflow of the raceway, and that was based on, I believe, several members expressing concern, and that would be helpful. So that was mentioned at the site visit, and also this may be moot at this point, but there was some question from the applicant about moving forward with the peer review of the soil management plan before getting the results of the various added testing. And the sense of the commission there was that they're free to do that, but that we would probably want to have the results of the any boring testings to potentially amend that depending on what was found. So I think that was just things that were said at the site visit that I just wanted to be clear from my understanding, so that there's no sense of we did something out of the meeting that we weren't supposed to do, and if we ever do, we want to make sure we fully disclose that.
Yeah, that's built into the scope of the peer review, the subsequent documents specifically to the things that we talked about.
Yeah, just wanted to be sure that anything that was said that bordered on maybe shouldn't have been said, that it's fully publicly disclosed, so.
Thank you. Yes, we agree. As Ms. Atkinson said, the peer review scopes went out. There were a couple minor adjustments, and one of them was specifically on the additional soil testing for other materials. So if that would be the only other additional material we anticipate the LSP needing to review at this time, other than the information that's on record. Obviously, there's always caveats and whatnot. If new information is presented, that's fine. But we anticipate the LSP would review the additional testing once it's available. Following up on that, we would like potential input from the commission tonight, because I'm sure you would like this as well. We would like to move forward with the soil testing immediately, so we can get the results back quickly, so we can move things forward. So
Yeah, that was my next question.
I was going to
when is
ask,
that
I
gonna start?
think we have a reasonable plan here. Several of you saw the building. I think tonight we'd just like a consensus from the board that this is reasonable to satisfy your concerns about I guess, what you've called the lack of testing in the building area.
Opinion from the commissioners? Yeah, I think it's reasonable. At least I think it's reasonable. It's reasonable for a start. You know, we spoke earlier that our peer reviewer is going to weigh in on whether it's adequate or not. So whether it's reasonable or whether it's adequate may be two different questions, but time will tell. That's up to the peer reviewer.
Okay. Everyone
And
else?
so you're going to start immediately? Is that what you said?
We want to start as soon as possible, and we want to mobilize once would be the
Yeah, I
plan
think the
here.
sooner that we have those results, the better.
Okay. And that's amenable to everyone?
I guess.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
I'm not an LSP.
What's that?
I'm not an LSP.
Okay, thank you.
I do have one question on this protocol, though, the testing protocol. I'm assuming taking a core at these locations, and then are you going to be, in essence, dumping that core into a bucket, spinning it, shaking it up or stirring it around and taking a sample? Or are you going to be taking discrete samples at different depths within that core?
Joe, how are you planning to do this?
It may end up being a combination of both. In part, we'll kind of gauge that based on what we're seeing. We'll have a photo ionization detector, a PID, to kind of field screen these as we're sampling.
Yeah.
And then we'll try to get a good representation of different conditions, different depths.
Is that standard
Different-
practice to mix it like that? It seems to me that potentially dilutes the sample.
It depends on what you're doing. In soil characterization, you need to get a representative set of data that represents the depth of excavation, of planned excavation. But when you're doing tests like for VOCs, those are a discrete sample. So we would, let's say, for example, if we're trying to characterize soil from a 0 to 4 foot depth, we may do a composite of that for certain tests, but the VOC sample would be a discrete that exhibited, say, the most evidence of staining or odor or the highest hit on the field screening with the PID.
The reason I ask is because if you composite the sample, dump it in a bucket, stir it around, take a sample, and it comes out high, now you have basically said, my entire 4-foot profile is dirty and I've got to contend with it, which could be a lot of material. But if you take a discrete sample, say between 1 and 2 feet and 2 and 4 feet, and your 2 and 4 foot is clean and your 1 to 2 foot is really high, well, now you've limited how much material you have to process or handle separately. So by compositing it, you are diluting the contamination, but you may end up creating a lot more material to dispose of.
Okay, and Mr. Lombardo, I would suggest, and I'm walking a fine line here and telling you how to do your job, but the samples that you take in the raceway may have different contaminants than the samples that you're taking from under the slab due to the nature of the Sudbury River running through the building. So
It's possible.
Sure.
You're
I'm
probably
sorry.
going to have metals.
Thank you.
There's one of the major contaminants in the Sudbury River is mercury, and you're probably going to have that in there.
It's possible.
Okay.
We'll let
Okay,
you know.
you want to take public comment and then bring you back, Chris?
Sure. Thank you.
Come on,
Okay.
name and address, yeah.
Art Johnson,
And-
4 Roberts
well,
Road.
Before you start, could we take this plan down and see who's on the screen in case there are people that we want to,
Oh, for
Yeah, I can.
the Zoom
I'll stop.
screen? Yeah.
I'll stop sharing. Is that good?
that is much better.
Okay.
Okay,
Art Johnson, 4 Roberts Road. I'm just doing a follow-up question from the last hearing when the development team seemed to be unaware that the site was in fact in the Nyanza plume. So when Becca pulled up the map, it shows most of it is. So I just wanted to know if the team acknowledges that that's where the site is sitting. As far, the toxic waste dump site. And the other question was, at the last hearing, Mr. Engler suggested that we might have to put up signs, you can't plant tomatoes here. So maybe that was a joke, but when will they decide, after the building is built, they test the soil, and is that when they decide when you can plant tomatoes? Or I was just a little concerned about that comment. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Johnson. It's, anyone want to respond to that?
Well, wouldn't the AUL would provide the criteria, of what can be done on the site after it's completed. So,
Yeah, it's a little bit outside of our jurisdiction. I don't know if it was mentioned in the comprehensive permit as to what are allowable uses after construction. Unless it were impacting a wetland area, it would be beyond our scope to comment on that. But I think it is probably a concern. It's shared by a lot of folks in town, given the nature of the site. Can I jump up on screen first? Joan Confrati, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yes, Joan Confrati, One Shore Road, Ashland. I'm on the Historical Commission, but speaking as an individual resident. If I understood correctly, the contamination in 10 Main is extremely high and well over the residential limits. What will keep that contamination from migrating to the residential building if the area floods? That's my first question.
I think that's a question for our LSP when they weigh in on what those potential hazards may or may not be. I don't think that any of us are qualified to comment on that, but it's certainly an issue that we are aware of and that we will follow up on. And I would suggest that when our LSP is here and we revisit this discussion of contamination, that you raise that same question.
Okay, thank you so much. Secondly, the final testing, if I understood, the final testing will not be completed and the AUL changed until the historical granite buildings are demolished and a new building that could be potentially uninhabitable at that point is built. I still feel that a full set of testing should be completed before the demolition. I think this was talked about at the last meeting, and Mr. Engler refused to do, and I apologize, I forget what that set of testing is called, but if it's being done for other reasons, why isn't it being done for us? And that is still very concerning to me, that Ashland is not important enough to have that testing done ahead of time.
I believe it's the characterization that you're referring to.
Yes.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to keep deflecting the answers. Initially, there was going to be no subsequent testing. The applicant has agreed to do 11 new sites, some under the building, some next to the building, and in the raceway. One of the questions that we're asking our LSP is that adequate? And that person would be better versed to speak to that question than we are. But it's certainly a concern of ours. You know, it's something that you've probably heard us say over and over and over again, that we want to know what's there and where it is. And so we're getting there slowly, I think.
Absolutely, and I appreciate everything the conservation is doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Ma'am?
Hi, good evening. Kim Lencho, 79 Hilldale. And my question essentially is similar to Joan's, where there was a comment that the residential levels of contamination were higher, but commercial were lower, when a significant part of this whole structure is residential at 250 apartment units. So a similar question as to how it can be done under the commercial regulations when it's stated that it's a largely residential project.
I'm going to try to answer that one. The area that we were talking about earlier, 10, is remaining commercial, not residential. And part of 20 is as well, remaining standing and remaining commercial, I believe, and not residential. The parts that are residential are going to have an open-air garage under it. And so what the applicants are claiming is that that will provide some protection between any contamination in the ground and the floors above that do you want to elaborate on that, Mr. Lucas, or? Do you have another question?
I think you summarized it. We're meeting the state requirements for where the residential and commercial uses can go on the site based on what's present.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mark Tassoni, you want to unmute yourself?
Okay, thank you. Mark Tassoni, 119 Main Street. This tonight was a lot more understanding and informational of what both the Concom and Mr. Christopher, the OST, I think he's called the site person.
Mark, hold on
Oh,
one
he's-
second. I never thought I would say this, but can you speak up louder? I'm having
Speak up
trouble hearing
louder.
you.
How's that?
That's better. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Mark Tassoni, 119 Main Street. I just wanted to say this is a lot more informational and understanding since the last meeting when what's going on and saying that the developer and people are dragging their feet. Now I can understand why they're dragging their feet and why the Concom is making sure that they're gonna be dotting the i's and crossing the t's, because it does take all that long to do. But I got hopefully 3 questions. One is the draining of the water, of the liquids that could have been, they haven't got a straight answer yet, that it might have been from the Nyanza plume itself. Is that a complicated question to answer, or is it a true answer, but it's not being answered? That's one question.
It's, I think, and I'll try to rephrase that a little bit. I think the question had to do with dewatering, and while the dewatering was going on, there would be groundwater mixed in that potentially is contaminated from either Nyanza or historical uses at the site. And how would that be addressed? Is that your question?
Yes.
Do you want to follow up on that, Mr. Lucas?
Can you say that again, Carl, please?
There's, I'll break it down a little bit. There's potential that some of the groundwater that's in your dewatering system is groundwater that's contaminated from Nyanza. How is that going to be addressed, or are we just guessing that it's not contaminated? I mean, how often would it be tested, I guess?
Well, we've done, all the testing we've done has indicated what contaminants are on the site associated with the plume. As George said, we're on the down gradient edge of the Nyanza plume, and the testing that we've done is to determine what contaminants from that plume are on the site, in the soil and in the groundwater. So everything we presented to date on this, the soil and water management plan, the dewatering plan, is to address those chemicals which are associated with the down gradient edge of the plume.
Okay, so there will be testing, Mark. I'm not sure that anything is ever fail-safe with these things, but it's certainly is a topic that we've discussed a lot here. Everyone's aware of it, and hopefully it will be thoroughly tested as we go along. So what's your next question, please?
Next question was going to be concerning the when you put out the first graphic about the when you got to when you got to go inside the building, and had the on the testing pits go on. Those 8 testing sites that's in red, that's in that first picture.
Okay.
So
what are they?
What are they, and what is expected, or hopefully expected to get from those sites to make it a buildable? Okay, go ahead.
We're hoping to get an idea of what potential contaminants are in the soil under the building at those sites. So that's what we're hoping to attain from those tests.
And my last one would be there was something going on in front of 10. 10 Main Street in the front part of the building,
Yep.
gas lines? Some sort of test in there, some sort of reaction?
I can't really hear what he's saying.
I think he's might be referring to are you referring to the raceway and the testing
Yeah,
outside the
yeah,
building?
it's a raceway in front.
Oh, okay.
In front of.
Okay, well,
in front
there's
of
as
10.
you know, I think, Mark, there's a canal that runs under the building. And it comes from, initially, it ran from Mill Pond underneath Myrtle Street, and it created the power for the mills. It's been out of commission for quite some time, but it's still there, and it's still in existence under the building. We have asked them to do a test where the culvert from Mill Pond goes into the raceway and where the head wall is, where the raceway comes out on the other side, to see if there's any contamination there. And that will be, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we don't know what the answer to that is yet, but we will.
And with the back of the back of the building closest to Sudbury River, is there gonna be a result test in there too?
There has already been some testing back there, not in the Sudbury River, but there has been some testing behind the building. We'll talk about that the next time we talk about contamination at our hearings.
Okay, thank you, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have one more? Okay, Mr. DeYoung, do you want to unmute yourself?
I think, can you hear me?
Ken.
Good. Lawrence DeYoung, 106 Sudbury Road. I have two questions. The units that you talked about that process the contamination, the water and so on, you talked about liners and that there were, I think you said that 12 mil or 20 mil, some version thereof. Question about those units. Are they above ground or are they just at the surface of the ground, and how accessible are they? And with that question as well, if the liners over the space of a few decades have to be replaced, how difficult is it? That's my first question.
Good question. Do one of your team want to answer that?
I'm going to defer to the team on this one. Joe, I don't know if Joe, Bob, I think it's you, Joe.
Is someone going to respond? Can't hear them if they are.
Yeah, I would look to John or Bob on this one. I mean, from my limited, and this is not in my purview, but those systems are below grade.
Is there parking over them then, or asphalt?
I thought you were speaking about the above ground treatment, not the
That
below ground
large thing in the
stormwater.
back.
The
I
stormwater.
understand.
The
I
large
understand.
thing in the back is underground.
Underground.
The rest
And
of
that
the
has the line.
system is above ground. Is that correct? That it
The-
pumps
the-
to?
So again, there's two items. There's the during construction, temporary pumping. That is all essentially that it's pumped above ground. And Bob and Joe can speak to those a little better than I can, but that's above ground, and that's pumped to and then discharged out either to the canal or through the municipal system. The formal design for once everything's constructed and in the ground, that is under the pavement, in that back parking area. That is an underground system that then gets pumped directly to the canal.
Okay, and I think the second part of the question was, if something needs to be replaced in that system, is it difficult?
The underground part especially.
Depending on what it was, they'd have to dig it up and repair the pavement around it.
Okay, and I have a second question. And that is, early on, you talked about contamination removal during the construction process. During that time, how are violations going to be dealt with? And there's one violation, perhaps, will it be dealt with? If there's several violations or multiple violations across the line, over time. How are they going to be dealt with from both your point of view, which I think is easy enough, but supposing they're not eventually addressed adequately, what are the recourses?
When you say your point of view, are you speaking to the Conservation Commission or the applicant?
No, speaking to the developer.
Oh.
I mean, you know, once a violation has occurred, it'll be itemized, it'll be addressed in one way or another. Supposing there's multiple violations, is there any other recourse other than to say, well, fix it, fix it, fix it, fix it? And then it keeps on going. Or perhaps if they don't fix it in the proper amount of time and they drag their heels, what does the town have as a recourse?
Well, it's, hold on a sec. There is a stipulation, a condition in the ZBA ruling that allows a certain amount of money for our own LSP to monitor this, for us, for Ashland, to hire somebody to monitor this work instead of having the LSP that's hired by the developer to work that. We haven't spoken about that aspect because we haven't gotten to that point yet here at the Conservation Commission. I'm assuming that, that there will be a discussion of that there will be some kind of condition that allows for the Conservation Commission to have their own LSP as well. And it will be monitored by our conservation agent as well as the commissioners themselves. If there are multiple violations, I guess it depends on who has jurisdiction over the violation. You know, is it a federal violation? Is it a state violation? We are enforcing state law here. The local law has been waived with regard to this as it applies to wetlands and stormwater. So I guess it would depend on what that violation would be and how severe the potential repercussions would be. It's a great question. We just haven't gotten to that point of the deliberation yet.
My time on the planning board a number of years ago, there were developers that did violate, and it was like treated like you know, a slap on the wrist. And this project is so sensitive. I feel very strongly that the way it's dealt with if there are violations has to be very, very much set in place and very strong. Otherwise, the people living there or the people during construction, particularly, it can be a real problem and can be buried. And I don't want that to happen. I'm sure you don't.
Want to speak?
Just, this isn't directly for violations, but another thing that we may want to consider is a performance bond for, particularly as they're in the middle of this, if something bad happens, and and they're not able to finish, we need enough money available to stabilize the site. We don't normally do that because most of the projects have planning board bonds involved, but we have done that once before, so it's something we may want to consider at some point.
That was in our local bylaw, under our local bylaw that we did that. So we would have to investigate whether that's within our jurisdiction to do so.
We may want to look into that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to thank the Conservation Commission for all of your work. I greatly appreciate it. Being a person who lives just a couple of blocks from this is going to impact the whole area.
Well, thank you very much, and bring those questions back to subsequent hearings because I think they're very important. I don't think we really gave adequate answers yet, but it's not because we haven't thought of it, it's because we haven't deliberated on it yet.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, Mr. Lucas, where do you see us at this point? in the deliberation process.
I guess for the schedule and next steps, we have some question for you on the board. I guess it's really the timing of your peer reviewers. Do you have an anticipated timeline for the LSP review and GCG's review and Beals and Thomas? Because I think that's going to determine the next steps here. If you have I don't know if they've given you a schedule, an estimate, a rough timeline, a couple weeks, a week. That would really kind of guide our next steps here.
We mentioned this earlier, that Beals and Thomas is waiting for your subsequent documentation. Beals and Thomas is the floodplain peer reviewer. You wanted to do floodplain before stormwater, which I think I agree with, and I think the commission agrees with. We haven't heard back. We don't even have an estimate yet on the peer review for the contamination. Today is Monday. I'm assuming we'll have it by the end of the week, but
Okay.
I don't know that. I did submit your amendments, approved and submitted them to the LSP on Friday, or maybe it was even on Saturday. But he made those changes, so I'm assuming that we will be hearing from them. But I think, as I mentioned earlier, my questions with regard to contamination, I would rather wait until we actually have the peer reviewer here.
Right.
You and I talked privately about, we were going to do contamination, floodplain, stormwater. We reversed floodplain and stormwater to do floodplain first. We also talked about pausing contamination if we were done talking about it in anticipation of getting more information and moving on to the next topic. So I don't have a problem doing that, but we still need peer reviews to go forward. And I can keep you up to date on when we have those peer reviews, but we don't have any of them right now. Beals and Thomas is waiting for your material. I'm not sure if GCG needs anything else from you. I'm not aware that they do. And we should hear from Partners Environmental this week. So I don't know if you want to schedule another hearing and then we can continue it if we don't have the material that we need, or if you want to schedule it out a little bit.
Hang on one second, please. Yeah, we if amenable to the board, we'd like to schedule about a month from now, and then we can determine, based on the peer review schedule, if it should be a contaminant discussion or a floodplain discussion. I think that's reasonable.
And is that the 20th, Sophia? Is that what that Monday is?
Yeah, I believe a month from now, it would be Monday, July 20th.
Okay, and we don't have a regular hearing on the 20th, I'm assuming.
That is correct.
Does that work for everyone?
I think that's reasonable. And then if it's possible for you and the commission to potentially get a tentative schedule from the peer reviewers when GCG may have, I'm not looking for a date certain, but like a ballpark, a week, 2 weeks. Beals and Thomas, same thing. Once they get our information, how far out are they? Same with Partners. If we could get schedules, that would help direct us for responses and getting better prepared for that next meeting, which will, I think, help the dialogue like it did tonight.
I agree. So as soon as I have some information, I'll forward it to you.
Okay.
We can figure out which is going to be first, whether it will be the floodplain or a continuation of our discussion on contamination. But we want to give you enough time to respond. You're still waiting for the peer review predominantly for wetlands and floodplain and stormwater to respond at the same time that you do to respond to our questions at the same time you respond to the peer review questions, correct?
Your initial comments, you mean?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, once we have GCG's and Beals and Thomas's peer review, we will also respond to the commission's initial comment letter, which relates to those same topics.
Okay.
So we'll have a comprehensive package to address all 3 letters.
Okay. Anything else from any of the commissioners? Anything else for you, Mr. Lucas?
I think that's it. Yeah, that'll be it. Thank you.
All right, then we need a motion to continue this hearing to Monday, July 20th at 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock, yeah.
So moved, Bill.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Ackerman, aye.
Crow, aye.
Crouch, aye.
Atkinson, aye.
Moulton, aye.
Bonds, aye, motion passes. So we'll see you all on the 20th at 7 o'clock.
We'll see you in a month. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Appreciate the
All
time.
right.
Thank you, all the people who took time to come down this evening.